Uh-oh. Well, that ain't good. Good morning and welcome back to Build by Bo. Today we have the Granada again, and today we have to tackle the rag joint. So the rag joint is a small piece of fabric or rubber in between the steering shaft from the column and the steering box, and it just eliminates vibration between the chassis of the car and the steering wheel. So basically, after sitting for 26 years, the rubber's got all dry and it rotted out. So after our first test drive, it was working fine. Then I was driving the car and I could feel like a little bit of play and some clunking coming from the steering. So I checked on the rag joint, and sure as shit, it's torn out and broken up, and I'll show you that now. So as you can see here, the rag joint is supposed to connect this bottom collar here on the steering box to the steering shaft up here. So this rubber right here is where it's torn, and it's supposed to be in between these two pieces. So I'll have to take off this bolt on this side, and there's one collar bolt underneath this brake line, and I'll have to drop the column down and out. So I'll have to move this column forward away so I have enough room to pull this collar off of the box. And then because the rag joint isn't really available right now where I can see for anything, they want to sell the whole joint for 150 bucks. So I'm going to take it apart and see if I can find a replacement that'll work for it. Now, if you watch really close, you should be able to see the steering shaft has play before it contacts the box, and that is supposed to be connected via rag joint. So obviously you can't see much in here, but this cover here is going to have to be removed. There's two Phillips screws at the bottom, and then there's going to be a collar bracket here and a collar bracket here, probably with a, I'm going to guess it's a 1/2 inch or a 14, well, in this case, I'm going to guess it's going to be a 1/2 inch or a 9/16 nut. So I'm going to drop the two collar nuts off this one, and then drop the column down slightly, pull the column forward, and then I should be able to get that collar off the box. Okay, so as you can see, this is the first collar I was talking about, and this is the second collar down here that I was talking about. So now I'm going to try and work at those rusty bolts under the hood and see if I can't get those off. So here's the stud I just undid. I can't pull it out without pulling this knuckle off the box. So I'm going to mark the steering shaft so I know where it went. And then I'm going to turn it 180 degrees so I can get at this other rusty bolt on the other side. And then I'll show you how to pull the column out. All right, so I've marked the steering shaft on the rag joint side along with the base of the steering shaft. And then I marked the steering shaft to the box just so when I put it back together, the alignment is correct. Okay, so I have these 4 nuts undone as well now. And now be careful when you're dropping the column down. Just of any wires that could be possibly hanging up, you don't want to tear anything. All we want to do is gain room for the steering shaft. I'm just going to let it float sitting on the seat, and then I'm going to work on the knuckle outside on the box. As you see here, there's the bottom of the steering shaft as I've got it pulled out sitting on the seat a little bit. This is the joint that needs to be attached to the rag joint. We need to pull this off the box, and then we'll try and figure something out. And I don't know if you can see or not inside there, but it is actually splined and notched. So you can, looks like it can only go on one way, which is good to know, but always mark it because you never know if it's just a straight spline or if it's a notch spline. All right, so as you can see, we've got it all out now. This is how it's supposed to look like here. And you can see how the rubber is supposed to be connecting to here, in these areas, and there's chunks of it missing. So we're going to make this out of some, probably maybe a piece of mud flap or something with some strong webbing inside of it, or something strong anyway that we can make back into this joint, and then we'll get her back into the car. So as far as the joint goes, these two outside guys here, they hook onto your steering shaft coming down from inside the car, the column. So they're just nut and bolted. They just press in and out. There's nothing to them. And these back ones here, this one and this one behind this cover, was a rivet inside this part holding it together. So I drilled a hole down through the rivet, or down through this stud, and tapped it that way, and then I ground it off smooth. And then I just put a nut and a bolt in to hold it in place. So now the joint is serviceable. So technically before it wasn't serviceable because that was riveted together. Now that I've threaded those pieces, this joint is serviceable in case this fails again. Again, you can see it's just a thick mud flap, webbed inside, so pretty strong, and definitely, I mean, it's stronger than the pieces left of that one. So we're gonna give it a try, and most of the rag joints that I've seen are made of rubber with a web base to it. So we're gonna get this back in the car and get her back together. All right, so I can't get a great angle on this and get my big fat arm in there at the same time. So basically I have cleaned this joint all up as well, but I put my marks back on where they go. And as I said before, this seems to be notched in two places, so it should only be able to go on one way. So I'll get my arm down there and get it in place. And because you can't see anything, I won't bother recording it, but I'll show it to you after. All right, so we have the joint back in place. Just had to wrestle it just a little bit, just not a lot of room to get it between the steering shaft and onto the splines of the box. It was master spline, so it only goes on one way. I just also verify my marks line up where they need to go. And one bolt goes back out in here. We put that guy back there. I'll get that tightened up, and then we'll pull the steering shaft down onto the joint and see how that works. Okay, as you can see here, we've got our bolts going through the rag joint into the steering column. Those are through. Just gotta put a nut on it. Same with this bottom one that you can't see. We're lined up in the center of our shaft here, so everything seems to be good. So I'm gonna get the nuts on and get her tightened up, get the steering column hung back up. So as far as the brake light cruise control switch, we're just going to put it back into the same spot where you can see it was before, and then we'll thread it back in. Okay, so as you can see under here, we have that all buttoned up. We got the switch put back on. Everything looks good. We're just going to get that cover put back on, and then we'll check the steering out. Okay, so we're all buttoned up down in here. Everything looks good. Our marks are all lined up. And if you've done everything right, your steering wheel should be straight, your wheels should be straight, and everything should be just like it was before. Let's check the play in that shaft. Feels pretty good to me. I'm gonna call that a win. As long as that rag joint lasts a while, we're all good, but at least what we've done now is made it so it's serviceable, even though it's not super friendly to get at. It's serviceable, and we can repair it next time. Well, that's going to finish off today's video. I hope this information helps if you have a car similar to this. It probably applies to a whole bunch of different cars, not just this Granada. The variation of how the rag joint and steering shaft and stuff might be different, but the premise of how everything works will be similar, and you should be able to apply the knowledge for another vehicle. That being said, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like the videos. And we still have lots more to do on this car. We've got a heater core to do, we've got brakes to do and everything, but now that we've got the steering part safe, I think we're gonna take it out soon and take it for a cruise, see how everything is. So look forward for that video. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.